G'day, legends, and welcome to the Off-Season Chinwag on Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight is Shane. How you going, Shane?
Yeah, doing well, thanks, mate. Good to be with you as always. Had a bit of a busy weekend doing Open House Melbourne, checking out a few sort of buildings and structures that aren't normally open to the public, but they open them up for Open House Melbourne so everyone can go and check them out. And yeah, got to see some pretty wicked architecture.
Oh, there you go. Figured it out. We're just trying a new software tonight, everyone. So I'm hoping the live stream's actually going out there to someone because I'm not sure if it is. So there you go. We'll figure this out. But yeah, it's good to be back on the pod for another week and talking about what's going on at Celtic Football Club. So I don't know what there's to discuss, Shane. Like, not a lot's been going on. Like, I know this is my sarcastic usual self here, but if we have a look at it, there's a few talking points. So it could be a quick pod, could be a long pod. Who the bloody hell knows? So, yeah, what we're looking at is tonight's episode, One of These Days. Daisen Maeda leaves Celtic after 4.5 years, I think it was. We'll talk about his impact at the club. There's some rumours of Martin O'Neill tendering his resignation, so we'll discuss that. Some potential signings, including a club record signing. And then we'll talk about, like what we said last week we'd do, so a couple of positions that that need strengthening. And then we'll just, talk some absolute garbage as per usual. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get this to go live. I don't think it is, Shane, but anyway, we'll just record and then upload it later on if need be, if it doesn't work. So what's your thoughts on Daisen calling time at Celtic Park?
Oh, look, I think it was inevitable in the end, really. We talked sort of last week about and I sort of mentioned maybe there was a possibility with Martin staying on that Daisen might stay around, but that was more said in hope and a very small amount of hope. I think he was always destined to go to the Premier League. He's something that he's aspired to do for quite a while. And so, yeah, I'm not too surprised that this has happened. I think in terms of his move, like I don't profess to know an awful lot about the Premier League, but he's obviously gone to a club that's just come up. So I think that's actually a really good and smart move. It allows him the opportunity to, embed himself at a club and get some opportunities that maybe wouldn't at a club that's already established in the Premier League. And so, yeah, look, I genuinely have no ill will to him leaving. He's been an incredible servant for us over the years. For me, looking back or having the ability to look back over his time at Celtic over the past couple of days when it was announced, it was actually a joy to go back over and sort of look at the impact he's had on the club and on our success during his time here. You know, when you think about it, when he comes in and the way that he plays, he really typified what Ange Ball was all about. That continued, relentless, we never stop kind of play. The pressing, the constant second efforts and third efforts and fourth efforts. And yet he probably played his best football, or at least he reached his peak at Celtic in Brendan's second season when, he was genuinely the best player in Scotland. He was absolutely incredible that season, and from January onwards, he was arguably I legitimately say this, arguably one of the best players in the world. Look, unfortunately, it wasn't panning out very well last season. I think he got maligned a little bit too heavily for my liking, maybe due to him not getting a move away and so forth. What I really value though is the fact that his time at Celtic did kind of end on a high, a little bit of a fairy tale. So Martin's second stint, he comes back in, he plays a crucial role in that run-in to the end of the season, and obviously scores the goal at Paradise that effectively puts us ahead on the league table for us to win the title. So it really did kind of be that fairy tale in the end, and it's nothing short of what he deserved because he's been an incredible servant, and I hope he does well at Ipswich. I hope he bangs in the goals. I hope he continues to get better.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what you just said there, Shane. So for me, Daisen coming in, like, the funny thing was with this podcast, Liam being on it from Japan, like, he was wording us up about, there's this guy, Daisen Maeda. We're constantly saying to him, who's your dream player in Japan that you think would do well at Celtic? And even 18 months before we signed him or even linked with Daisen, he was saying, it's got to be Daisen Maeda. I remember when he was at Yamaga or whatever, it's a local club where he is, and he was just talking about him and just telling us how good Daisen is. And he comes in and he's playing on the wing, and everyone's like, "Oh, geez, he's pretty bad out there." And it's like Liam's like, "No, he's a striker." And then he was playing out of position because we had Kyogo up front, and I don't blame it because the wee man when he was up front, Kyogo, he's absolutely banging in goals like left, right, and centre, particularly under Ange. So it made sense, but Daisen always got out there, worked right. We had the joke that Tom Rogic only has one lung and Daisen Maeda has eight because of how hard running he was in his first season when he's coming in just up and down the touchline and everything like that. So the biggest issue for us going forward is we're not going to be able to get a like-for-like replacement for Daisen. And because he's such a one-of-a-kind sort of player, like you don't see that sort of player very often, particularly in Scottish football. So, yeah, just Daisen, he came in, did his job, and when Kyogo moved on, Daisen got into that central striker role, and he just went to a whole nother level. And I feel like that's when he got his flowers as a player at the club. Like, he was a little maligned early on when he was playing as a winger, but then when he came into that striker, he started to settle in, banging in goals for fun. And after that point, I found he was, as a striker, his confidence was high. It didn't matter if he was a striker or if he was out playing wing and Ida was in the middle. No matter where he was on the pitch, he was making more of an impact. He came in himself. He believed in himself. And that self-confidence was all-time high. And, yeah, he's just unbelievable player for us. And, yeah, as you said, last season, he didn't come into his own the way he did in the last, post-split in particular. We wouldn't have won the double last season. So, Daisen, arigato. Thank you for all we've done. I didn't look that up either. I learnt Japanese in primary school. That's about all I remember. That and how to use the word ambulance. But, just thank you, Daisen, for everything you did for Celtic Football Club. You're always one of us. And, yeah, your legacy is going to be tied to, what happened last season in particular, those last few games. Fair player, fair dues, and Liam, well done. Good call. Now, can you scout us the next one in Japan, please?
Oh, dear. It's been incredible to look back over some of his vital contributions because you're right, he was a little bit maligned, particularly early on, and you did have to take the good with the bad. You had all of this intensity and all these second and third efforts, 8 lungs, as you said, but then you had the shots that would end up in row Z or the crosses that would actually end up at the corner flag. And that became less and less. I wouldn't say completely removed from his game, but his output and the quality of output definitely got better as he became more confident, which is what you said. But he's left us with some incredible memories, not just the way it all sort of finished last season, but a couple of wonderful goals up until, of course, the peak of them, which is the overhead kick against Rangers, which is just genuinely should have been goal of the season. What kind of stupid competition awards goal of the season before the season's finished, right? That's just insane. He's been robbed of that. But yeah, plenty of great memories to look back upon. And a player that I think will always never properly replace. I think you've summed that up perfectly.
I've got a fair assessment for you here, Shane. You're a basketball fan. You'll understand this context. Kobe Bryant's NBA career. There was the two Kobes. There was the first 10 years, number 8. And then there was number 24 later on, the Black Mamba, right? Now, you have a look at Daisen. There's Daisen with the shaved head, and then there was Daisen as the Slim Shady look-alike with the blonde hair towards the end in the second patch. So it's kind of funny when you look at it. I was looking at his pictures before when he was announced, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he was that bald because he's getting used to him having a head of hair now. But yeah, it's he's just a great player, and I used to say early on this pod, like, geez, he's got 8 lungs, but he's got concrete feet. In terms of when he's having a shot and trying to trap the ball to get a shot off. But that improved over time, and yeah, he goes with my best wishes. And I saw a post, I think it was maybe Paul on Axon, put up about where would he rate in the all-time Japanese players at Celtic. And if you have a quick rattle through a few names, right, you've got Nakamura, you've got Kyogo, you've got Daisen. They're your top 3 in my opinion. But then you've got other names you've got to throw in there. Itaguchi, Kobayashi,
Inamura.
Hatate. Inamura, Shane's mate. So we've had quite a few Japanese players at the club over the years, and yeah, I just think it's if it's a bit of recency bias, like I think over the course of his time at the club, because he spent so much time there, 4.5 seasons is quite a bit. Yeah, I'd put him up there. It's hard to I don't know. It's hard to look at because when I was younger, it was Nakamura. So for me, Nakamura is on a level. But I did at one point say I thought Kyogo was the best striker we'd had since Larson before he got his shoulder injuries. So it's kind of hard because I got those three. And if you ask me today, I'm going to say Daisen is the second best Japanese player we had. Slight. But then if you ask me in a week's time, he could be third, he could be first. Who knows? So yeah, I was looking to go. We've had some great players come from Japan, and yeah, let's get the next one in.
Yeah, we've been incredibly blessed with some of the players we've had from Japan, and you think of one of the names that you mentioned sort of later on there, which is Rio Hitate. Arguably during his second and third season, he was arguably first out of that list, or at least close to, right? He was well and truly in the mix. Now to me, it feels like he's a clear fourth, and yet he's still, despite sort of some of his recent, I guess, not up to sort of the level we'd expect from him, he's still been a tremendous servant over his time at the club. So, yeah, for me, I tend to lean on Kyogo still. Kyogo was just, when he was at his best, particularly just under Ange in that first and second season, I agree with you. I think he definitely... I had Dembele ahead of him, and then by the end of it, I'd gone, no, Kyogo second behind Larson. And he was the whole package, right? He wasn't just banging in the goals. He was making everybody believe. He was the guy... He was kind of like the front man. Ange was bringing in this whole new style. There was a renaissance going on after what had been a really, really poor season under Lenny. But you got to have players on the park that not only make it happen, but then get the fan base to believe. And you think of like just how Kyogo became so loved and embraced. And I think for me, I'd have him just slightly ahead of Nakamura and Maeda.
Yeah, Kyogo made us believe in Ange Ball.
Yep.
For those who weren't of an Australian persuasion, like us, who knew what it was going to be about, like Kyogo made us, a Celtic fan base, believe in Ange Ball. And yeah, he's up there. But there's one other we left off the list of Japanese players, Tomoki Iwata. There you go. I just remembered that. So here's one I didn't think got enough of a run back in the day when he was at the club, but player there as well. So yeah, it's been Daisen. Thanks for the memories. That's all I can say, and I wish you all the best. His move to Ipswich though, Shane. I'm going to just go on this little tangent here. Bit of a weird move, if you ask me. Like if Ange was still at Spurs, do you think he would have looked at bringing in Daisen?
Yeah, definitely.
So Absolutely. He could have gone to a top 6 team if Ange was there, right? Yet Ange ain't there anymore, and you look at the English Premier League. I know Daisen always said, my goal was to just go and play in England in the Premier League. Okay, cool. You're doing that. Do you think he's looking at this as a move going, okay, similar to like when Virgil and Wanyama went to Southampton, play there for a year or two, and then get his move to a better club? Because I honestly think that's what this is for him. He just wanted to play in England and prove himself. So I'm hoping the low price, the £10 million with a year left on his deal, has a nice little sell-on, that if he gets that £30 million move this time next year to a club like, I don't know, if West Ham comes back up or something like... Are they up or down? I don't know. But maybe a club like West Ham or a club like Everton or someone like that comes in for him, then we get a little chunk of change coming up the road again.
Look, I tend to agree. I'll circle back to what I was talking about before. I think the move to Ipswich, yes, he absolutely wants to play in the Premier League and test himself in the Premier League. I think the move to Ipswich probably isn't the end goal. I don't think this is the dream being met completely. But I tend to look at this as an opportunity for him to maybe get a chance at a club that's just come up, that is obviously going to have to find their feet. They're going to have to go through potentially some rotation, right? It's a big step up to go from Championship to Premier League. He walked into a club where I think he's got a genuine opportunity to stake a claim at being a significant player. It's probably harder to do that at a bigger club. if you've got Ange at Tottenham, Ange knows the quality he can bring. He can vouch for him, but other clubs probably don't have that level of awareness of him, or not to that same intricate degree. So he would find it more difficult if he went there initially, and he probably hasn't played that well in the last season and a bit to warrant that kind of move either. So I don't mind the Ipswich move because, as I said, I think it brings him to a club that's where he's going to get a genuine opportunity. And obviously, similar to Virgil, if he excels from there, then a bigger club will come in for him. And if we've got a nice little sell-on clause, that'll be an added little bonus for us.
I was just thinking it's similar to the Jeremy Frimpong move to buy Leverkusen before going to Liverpool, that sort of stepping stone, Big Five league, mid-tier club that, could surprise the odd one here and there, but it's definitely not going to be like buy Leverkusen going on to win a league. No chance in hell Ed Sheeran's team's going to go charging up the league and do a Leicester. Not happening. So, it's good on him. Off you go, have fun, and enjoy the rest of your career, Days, and we appreciate what you've done, and you're always welcome back at Celtic Park.
Yeah.
So, there was rumours of Martin O'Neill tendering his resignation. Now, this all came from a Facebook post from someone I know in the club and blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that. Now, pretty much, I'm not going to go into the read it because pretty much everyone tuned in would have seen that, heard the rumours, all that sort of stuff, right? So let's look at this on two fronts here, Shane, okay? The first thing was, if it was true, would you blame him? I wouldn't.
No.
I look at it and go, I feel like Martin's being made a fool with the way he's having to go out and front the media week in, week out and say, we're working on 5 deals on a Monday and on Friday, no one's in the door. Like, he's being made to look like an idiot. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was frustrated and did this. But then I'm also looking at it being, could it be him saying, I will leave if you don't bring me in with the players that I want. I need signings. You're about to sell Daisen. Other players are linked with moves elsewhere. Where's my damn players? We've lost 15 players. You brought in one who wasn't at the club last season. Sure, he's banging in goals for fun, but where are these other players? I think it's a great way to do it because Michael Nicholson's not the one doing anything. He's mute and hopeless.
Well, when we were on a few weeks ago, I was sort of mulling over the fact that Martin was probably one of the very few people attached to the club, either on the inside or on the outside, that could potentially generate some kind of change or at least make something happen that normally others couldn't. To be honest with you, Larsson's probably the only other person I think could put on some sort of public pressure that would potentially make something happen or change a situation that's not changing. And this might be that coming to the fore a little bit here. Now, I'll be honest with you. I read that rumour and, if we were a well-run club or even just with a couple of missteps along the way, I would have dismissed that instantly and said, nah, that's all crap. There's no way that's realistic. But considering just how poor we've been lately, how much upheaval's been happening, how much the disconnect between the club and the fans are, I looked at that and thought, this is a possibility. I can't rule this out. I'm getting caught up in this. I think this might actually be real. Now, in the end, it probably isn't necessarily real, or not to the degree that maybe it was put out. I don't know. But this could be Martin making that kind of play, saying, I'm going to walk if this doesn't happen or if this doesn't change. If you don't get me these players, I'm going to walk. And some of his media sort of discussions lately on the signings have tended to veer a bit more away from just defend the club to, I need these players. We need more players in. I've told the board we need more players. There's been a bit more of a bluntness to what Martin's saying, I've noticed, than maybe a couple of weeks ago. And this might be that sort of coming to the fore. Again, it would be, people say things won't change. And I agree that things wouldn't change, but it would be a significantly larger black eye than what the club board and club hierarchy currently have if Martin was to walk away on the eve of the season because of their inability to invest in the squad. It would be almost unrecoverable for them.
Not just that, Shane, but it's also like, the question is, if Martin was to leave, right, you're a week away from the start of the season. You're 2-3 weeks away from a Champions League qualifier. You've done all this pre-season work and then there's a management turnover. Who are you going to bring in? because the only positive I see from this is all those happy clappers and those who think the board can't do anything wrong because we won a heap of trophies. This would be the wake-up call they need. If someone of Martin's gravitas at the club is like, nah, I'm out, peace, because of all the rubbish. And I could imagine him doing that in his tracksuit, by the way. But if he was to say that and just leave because he's pissed off with what's going on, at the end of the day, what are you looking at here? Who's going to take over? Because if we're going through things, we've got a lot of empty spots at the club that need people hired. We went through this last week, but head of recruitment, 2 board members. We need a pathways manager. We need a head of recruitment, a head of scouting, another first team coach we're down. We're down a B team coach. It's Johnny Hayes is doing that on his own apparently at the moment. So you've got all this stuff going on. There's a lot of people missing. Suddenly if you're down a manager a week before the season, someone just pull the pin and throw the grenade. Seriously. Yeah. We're walking into the season with only one leg and a hand tie behind her back at the same time. It's absolute shambles.
Well, it's not just Martin leaving, in my opinion, either. If Martin goes in these circumstances, I can't see Maloney or Fotheringham staying behind. So effectively, your entire sort of manager and assistant manager group, basically, I think, probably walk out the door, because I can't see Maloney stepping in saying, "Oh yeah, I'll take this over." Not after the sort of what happened in the off season with their contracts. I think they would leave too. So you're effectively down an entire coaching staff for the first team. It would be an impossible situation to navigate through.
You don't even have a John Kennedy this time or a Gavin Strachan to hang around. Or you'd be left with Stevie Woods and that's about it.
And those loyal to the club, those loyal to who you would call upon, like a John Kennedy or someone like that, who have obviously been through this experience with what happened to Brendan and the character assassination that a couple at the club tried to put out post that, they wouldn't come back because they would have been through it. They would have seen it and said, "Well, we're not getting involved in this. Look what you've done to one of our, to Brendan, and then to one of our best managers, if not our best manager behind Jock, right?" So no one's going to want to even be involved. You'd have to pick someone, just pluck someone from obscurity who just says, "Okay, I'll do it." Awful.
I'm look at it 2 fronts. You'll either end up, if something like this happened, I was going to say you'd either end up with Sean Maloney interim for the rest of the season, or you'll end up with another Wilfred Nancy situation. The guy I would target for this time next year, if Martin was to step down, is currently at Birmingham City, which is Chris Davies. He'd be my first cab off the rank. But I don't see him walking away from that.
No.
Particularly into this sort of shit show. So you've got to get everything set up properly back of house before you can even talk to people. It's just a strange situation to be in. So,
yeah.
Talking about the recruitment though, Shane, if we're forcing through some stuff, I mentioned it early on. Celtic, look, there's a fee agreed with Bodo Glimt for striker Kasper Hogh, or is it Hogh? I heard it's Hogh, so it sounds like boy or something like that. I can never pronounce it right. I'll just call him Kasper number two. And we'll go from there. But Kasper number 2 coming into the club, and apparently he'll be a club record signing, even though the FIFA money angles was £11.5 million, right? Kasper Hogh is going to be a club record because of the amount we have to put up front to get him in. So in the initial transfer, we're going to be paying 11 million straight up, or 9 million straight up with 2 million the next year or something like that. So it's going to work out that way, that it's our highest upfront thing. It's also going to be our 3rd highest transfer in the club history once it's all paid out, behind Jota's first thing when he came in, because we had what we paid to Benfica for him and then the sell-on fee we gave to him. Then the next one on there, I think it was, hang on, I'll get the list. I'm not sure if it's Edward or Engels. But yeah, he's up in good company there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Comes in and does his medical and see what... There you go. Yeah, so he's Jota, 16.2 million euros. Arne Engels is 13 million euro. Kasper Hogh, €12.9 million is the agreed fee. So it's going to be, I was shocked when I found out he was only 25 years old. It's a perfect age profile with his history of banging in goals in Champions League, in the Europa League, in his league, 50-something goals in 100-something games for Bodo Glimt. He's just made his debut into the Danish national team. It's a perfect move for him. So that's the sort of profile striker we need. So if you've got him who was banging in goals in the Champions League last year, you've got Duran who was doing the same thing last year. That's promising. Now, if you can bring in another winger, like we're talking about Hassan, I think it was, Hasim Hassan, if you bring him in as well, because apparently Real Oviedo has agreed, yep, okay, you can go. Imagine if, I think Liverpool's sniffing around him as well, though, so I don't think that'll happen. But say if you were able to land him, your front three is going to be absolutely minted. Unreal.
Yeah, there is a little bit of optimism here with the signing of Kasper Hogh, and I've loved what I've seen from Duran so far as well, and the idea that they could work together as a combination or even just be in the same squad together, play one out wide if need be, and so forth, is genuinely exciting. All of a sudden, we've got arguably one, as you said, one winger away from basically having our front third sorted for the season, right? And Kasper Hogh is a genuinely exciting addition to the club because exactly what you said. He's 25. He's been banging the goals in at Champions League level. He's been banging the goals in for Bodo Glimt. He's just made his way into the national team. This is exactly the kind of player we should be looking to get as well, right? When we look at the players that we want to bring in and what we want to spend money on, these are the kind of players we should be doing it. So in terms of the identifying Kasper Hogh and getting the deal across, yes, it's a lot of money, but I think he's absolutely worth it. This is going to be a good bit of business for us, I think. I think he's going to be very, very good for us. I think him and Duran are going to be a very good combination together. There's just a little bit of optimism there. This isn't the end of it, of course, and I'm sure you're going to get onto sort of the other areas that we need to improve in. There's a lot that we need to do still.
Heaps of work to be done. But the thing is, I'm loving the fact that we're not just bringing in projects, 2 to 3 million pound project players to replace these guys. Like, we're looking to bring in a guy as a club record signing as a centre forward. We're bringing in a guy who'd been our top 10 spends potentially with what we're paid for Duran. If we bring in Hassan, same thing again. He's going to be 7.5 million. Bringing him in. So between the three of them, you've already spent £25 million to bring in three players. The funny thing was I saw the meltdown from the Huns on the Kasper Hogh thing, and they're going, of course, they don't sell a player in, best part of a year, and then they go and spend 6 million on Duran or 7 million on Duran, and then they go and make a club record signing, so 17 million for the two of them, for guys who between the two of them scored 12 goals in the Champions League last year. And they're saying about Hoy's being the only player from Bodo who can actually play outside of Norway. Bangs in the goals in those leagues. So, yeah, good signing. Just hope the medical goes through. Might have a look to see if it's actually been announced while we're on the air here. But yeah, it's
breaking news.
I find it a little bit exciting that we could bring someone like that in.
But it's funny you mentioned we're bringing in obviously a known quantity and a player that can literally start and start both domestically and at Champions League level. And then we can look at bringing in that project player underneath, right? And be that player to learn and develop underneath Hogh. Going back to something you've harked on about for a long time, that conveyor belt of talent, if Hogh does very well, this isn't going to be the end goal for him. He's going to want to maybe go down to England or go across to Germany, right? So then you've got to have that player that's developed underneath him. So there's still room for project players, but you've got to have that top-level talent first. So I look at this, as I said, with a lot of optimism, a rare amount of optimism for this club at the moment. But let it be said that this has to be the beginning, not the end, right? This has to be just the tip of the iceberg to what has to come next.
Yep. You say tip of the iceberg. I'm saying this is the tip of the spear and all the signings we need to do. We need to break through that wall and actually buy guys to start for our team. So, just having a look at something here. I'm quickly doing this right. But looking at the team from the weekend. So, I was saying the guys behind them. Like, we've got Osmond. He could be that guy behind Duran. And so if Hogh wasn't to play, Duran looks good in the striker area. So you could play him and have Osmond as his backup, as your third string. There's your production line ready to go. So we've already got that pretty much ready to go up front. It's just a matter of then we have to bring in a couple of wingers, which I'll get into in the next part. We may as well move along to that. So we said last week that we would talk about the left back position, goalkeeper, and the midfield. So we'll get into that after we just go through my little spiel here, Shane, because I actually wrote some stuff out. When I was sitting on the tram today, trying to get home from work, I'm like, all right, this is my thoughts on our midfield setup. So and not just midfield, our thoughts on our recruitment. So say we bring in Kasper Hogh, sorry. Fuck, it's going to take a bit of time getting used to it.
Just Kasper.
Kasper, number 2. Say we sign Mika Bauer, however you say that. I'm butchering names tonight. Go me. And Hasim Hassan, right? Say we bring those guys in. We still have a bunch of other positions that need to be addressed. And this is what you were just talking about. So my list for our team goes like this. This is everything we have to do still by the end of August. So what do we got? 5 weeks, pretty much. We need a possible first choice goalkeeper to come in to challenge Sinisalo for the starting jersey. Sinisalo's good. He's looking good on the ball. I rate him. But I want someone to come in and challenge him for the jersey. Every team should have 2 guys battling it out for every single position in the team. Last season, we saw at left back, we had Tierney, but we had Srirachi backing him up, who could come in and start any day of the week. On the right, we had AJ, but when he was out hurt, we had Araujo, we had Donovan, we had Bricky. So we had guys who could cover that position and challenge. We need to have players who can cover positions and challenge and battle it out. That's the way I look at it. So a possible first choice goalkeeper to challenge Sinisalo. I think we don't need to get a starting left back. We need to find someone domestically who's good enough to back up left back, right? So we've got Tierney there, but do we look? There's been rumours of Greg Taylor coming back on loan. Okay, you could bring him in. The other one is Will Ferry from Dundee United. He did really well last season there in a rubbish team. He's not necessarily the guy that you want to write home about. Sometimes these little one or 2 million pound players, if you get them domestically like him, it's good for the game because that's good money for Dundee United. And Will Ferry is 25 years old as well. Good age, good profile to come in. You never know. You may come in, do a Stuart Armstrong, spend a season battling for a spot and then take a starting spot and run with it. You never know. You might get that. So we need a left back. Do we need another centre back? Probably. But I think we'll end up with another loanee towards the end of the window when Premier League teams in England are like, yeah, we're cutting their squad down to 25 and we've got these 3 young guys that need to go on loan. We'll probably end up with one of those as the fifth option centre back. We need a first choice right back to replace AJ if he is sold. There's rumours Everton are banning in for him. I want to sell Nathan Patterson, bring AJ in, which means we're going to have to get a first choice right back. Me, first thing I do, knock on Bournemouth's door. How much do you want for the mad bastard Araujo? Simple, right? He knows the league. He played well. He'd do the job. He played well under Martin last season. If that doesn't work, then you better find someone. There's players out there though. Then we get to the midfield. There's three positions here we have to strengthen. Engels wants to move, so we have to find his replacement. Rio wants to leave. We need to find his replacement. And I would replace those 2. Bernardo, I would not replace him. If he leaves, I'd promote McArdle into the team and bring through one of our youth academy players as that in that role there. He can be the 5th option in your midfield. He's not going to play every week. He might play once a month, but start to blood through that young player. And then when you get to your wingers, depending on what we do with Yang, Balakwisha and Tenekti, even bringing in the 2 guys we've already spoken about in Duran and Hassan, we may still need to go get 1 or 2 more wingers. I think we keep Tenekti. If a bid came in for Balakwisha, we'd get rid. Yang, I would like to keep him. I actually think he's a good squad player and grew nicely and developed nicely last season. So it depends on what we do with the other guys there, what we're going to do. So that's my thoughts on the team. There's one other thing. We may get a team late in the window coming in for Negrin. If they realise, oh, we need that Rolls-Royce player, we need someone who can come in and do this. If that happens, I'm happy to let him leave. We just have to find someone to replace him and start identifying it. There's another young midfielder up at Bodo Glimt that we can look at as well. Let's just bring Bodo's whole recruitment team down here and sort it out. But that's my thoughts on how much work we still have to do, Shane. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'll throw it open to you for one of Shane's rants and waffle. Off you go.
I haven't given it anywhere near as much thought as yourself.
The program, mate.
It's just a couple of points on a few items that you said during that discussion. For the goalkeeper side of things, I probably don't necessarily think we need to get someone to immediately challenge Sinisalo. What I'm looking at is actually bringing in someone underneath him who is a real experienced head that can step in where need be, because he's only 24. And I'd like to have another experienced goalkeeper on the book, someone that is still a quality. Now,
Matt Ryan, that's
exactly
who you want.
what I was going to say. Like, the rumours were talking about Matt Ryan potentially coming, which I think would be good as a backup, someone that you can turn to in the event of Sinisalo being injured or out of form, and someone that you can still rely on. But he's going to be that experienced head that helps Sinisalo get to the next level. And Matt Ryan is someone that continually pushes himself and still plays at a high level, so Sinisalo isn't going to be able to rest on his laurels. So that's more of the kind of player I'd like. It doesn't have to be Matt Ryan, maybe someone in that ilk, but ideally it'd be nice to get another Australian in there. It's been a little while. Left back for me is a concern because we just don't have anybody if KT goes down. So that to me is one of the most pressing areas. We need to make sure that we've got some reinforcements. I'm not sold on the GT coming back to Celtic for a couple of reasons. I wasn't Greg's biggest fan when he wasn't playing under Ange. I just felt that we were really exposed down our left when he was actually playing at left back, particularly against bigger teams. And they'd just physically be imposing, and he couldn't deal with that. Whereas obviously Tierney doesn't struggle with that to any degree. I'm just not sure he would want to come back and be a backup anyway, as well. That's the other thing here. He's left Celtic. I think he's going to want first team football. So obviously Will Ferry sounds like a really good option to me.
What's Bolingoli doing? Who's he rooting his way around the world now? Let's bring him in.
For right back, look, a lot depends on whether AJ goes, of course. I think backup-wise, I'm okay with Donovan filling in where need be. I don't think he certainly isn't going to be a first-team replacement. If we sold AJ, promoting Colby to be number one right back is definitely not right now. He may get there in future, but he's definitely not there now, so we'd need somebody. I think of all the players still that we could potentially sell in this window, for me, AJ is the one that stands out as the most likely to go. I can definitely see a club coming in for him. I know Engels wants to move. I'm not 100% sure that's going to unfold, but definitely AJ is the kind of player that clubs want. That physical, imposing, that leadership quality. I can definitely see a club coming in for him, so that'll more than likely happen, and we're going to need a right back. I agree with you in midfield. We definitely need some reinforcements anyway, irrespective of whether both Engels and Hatate go. I don't expect Hatate to stay, particularly with Maeda off. I think Hatate is definitely probably next. As I said to you the other week, I want a proper physical number 6 in there. I want just a hard bastard. I want to go back to sort of almost the role we had with Bruni and Kalmack under Brendan's first tenure. You know what I mean? We've talked about it a lot. We reminisce about it, that physical, imposing, screening number 6, and then the one that can do all the running, right? I'd like to see that again.
We need a Wanyama type. That's what we need. Someone who's athletic, will leave a boot in on someone, but can also get forward and is a good header and can break up and disrupt play. That's what we need.
Negrin's probably the one for me that I've become more concerned about the more I've thought about it, and not necessarily because it's Benji Negrin. He is just an enigma because he had tremendous output last season, and yet I think we all sort of agreed that he wasn't that great over the course of the whole season. He was very up and down, hot and cold. And we seemed to be, when he was playing poorly, when he wasn't banging in the goals, it felt like we were one down at some stages. So if a club came in for him and bought him, I would not be concerned about that. What I am concerned about is a system that Martin wants to play where the number 10 has a greater emphasis, because that's actually the role where I see him being most suited to this team, where he's that number 10 that can get on the ball and spray the passes out wide left and right, or, act as a little bit of a secondary striker, maybe number 10, but sort of pushes forward into the box, right? That's where he was his best last season. I get a bit worried if we're going to play this system, who kind of steps into that number 10 role if he goes.
Don't worry, we'll find some free agent out there, won't we?
So I think for me, we all agree there's absolutely areas we need to strengthen, and there's some very concerning spots within this this team that we don't have reinforcements for. But I think for me right now, it's probably left back and the middle of the park that I've got the most concerns about. That I want to see actually. I want to see some player movement here.
Yeah, I look at it and go, as you said, once we get our front part sorted, like I look at Mika Bauer coming in, that's the Rio replacement.
Yep.
So that's covered off, right? So the question then is, for the middle of the park, I thought we were one man down most of last season anyway. And the one we took down is that genuine number 6. So we need to find that player regardless of what happens with Kelmack, what happens with Engels. So if Rio leaves, we bring Bauer in, great. That's that position sorted. Engels, I don't think we'll spend big and bring anyone in for that role until we know what's going on with him. Bernardo, just for the sake of his career, he needs to leave. Like, I think there's a player there, but it's not going to happen for him at Celtic. It hasn't happened under how many managers now? He needs to move on. And, yeah, as I said, I'd bring McArdle into that spot. Every time I've seen him play, I think there's a player there. Because realistically, if you're looking at your midfield rotation, you're playing 3 guys. If Engels still there, he'll play. Bring Bauer in, he will play. And you're going to have Kelmack, right? So there's your 3 in the middle of the park. So then you're looking at it going, and if Nigrin's playing in the 10, one of those 3 won't be on the field. So then you're looking at you still got your Bernardo replacement sitting there, and you've still got the Ox on the bench as well.
That's who I didn't think of before.
And you've got McCowan. So you've got 6 guys there. Realistically, why replace Bernardo? Cut it from the wage bill, put the extra money into getting a quality left back, as you're saying. Keep McArdle around.
Oxlade-Chamberlain is someone I didn't think of when I was sort of thinking of the midfield, in particular, maybe that more advanced midfielder role.
Is that 10?
Yeah, exactly. So we've probably got that sorted if Nigrin was to go. Not like if there was someone else on the market, maybe I'd definitely look at it, because I think I sort of liked what I saw from Ox in a bit more of a withdrawn midfield role last season. That's where I thought he was probably at his best, but I don't know if he got much of a crack as playing as that most advanced kind of midfielder. But if Nigrin goes, he would probably instantly step into that, and we'd be looking to see how he goes. But yeah, with Bernardo, obviously, if Engels goes, I think ideally, if that's not Bernardo's spot, he has to go. There's no point hanging around. He just clearly isn't meeting what the gaffers want, and that's got to be 3 or 4 now that have failed to kind of pick him. I'd love Engels to stay around for just one more season, because I think we could actually get a lot more out of him. He's arguably the best player in the squad and on the park for us week in, week out, or he could be the most important. Maybe that's a better way to describe him. And when he's at the top of his game, we look a very different team. So I'd love to get at least one more out of him. I think his value could actually increase a little bit more, particularly with Champions League football, if that all goes according to plan. And it would be a good way to strengthen a midfield area that we'd be severely weakened without him. I'd be concerned to lose him.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front. With Engels, if we could stagger it, so we lose Rio and Bernardo now, we keep Engels for 6 more months, get him a good first half of the season in the Champions League, playing well, under Martin, doing well, and then once we get to January, then he's got a decision to make. Do I want to stay the rest of the season? Do I want to make a move and see what the market's looking like then? Because if we can focus on replacing 2 midfielders, holding off, and then doing one in the next window, it's not going to be as topsy-turvy and mixing everything up in the middle of the park at one go. So in an ideal world, that's how it'll work. But this is football, and this is Celtic Football Club. And if a bid comes in that's the right amount, we accept it and just chuck the money in the bank and then Scrooge McDuck dive into it all. And then say that's a rainy day fund. So yeah, I was looking at going, we need to do some work at the squad, but overall, you've lost it.
No, the idea of having a rainy day fund for a club that's based in Glasgow.
Yep. The funny thing is, anytime you say Scrooge McDuck, if you haven't looked at it, go back and have a look at any of the footage when he's diving into that. Best swimwear ever. He's got the no pants dance going on. It's funny as. There you go.
Throwback to childhood.
Yep. Good laugh. Anyway, Shane, you got anything you want to talk about? Because I've run out of things on my sheet here.
No, just obviously we had the friendly against Milan on the
Oh
weekend.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't see any of that. I completely forgot about that, to be honest with you. I got some shit going on, everyone.
Oh, look, I only tuned in for portions of it as well. But for the portions I did sort of watch, there are a couple of good things. Colby Donovan had a couple of good moments. Duran again looks really dangerous in front of goal and just looks a really solid player when he gets on the ball. And it seems like when he gets on the ball, he doesn't want to necessarily pass it off all the time. He wants to make something happen. There's a bit of creativity there. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from him so far. And obviously we had it was a decent enough crowd as well, about 20, 25k I think, or around that mark it seemed. So maybe some of that optimism with a few of the signings is starting to see its way into our supporter base, because it was a vastly improved crowd compared to what we saw against Middlesbrough. And the challenge now, as you're saying, and as we've just both sort of talked about ad nauseum, is now that the club needs to run with this. The club need to accept that there is a little bit of optimism coming with a few of these signings. Go and maximise that. Go and get in everything that we need, or at least close to as possible, and be reasonable about this. Because this club, we want this club. We want this club to be ambitious. We want this club to be playing in Europe. Meet that ambition. Don't meet us halfway on that ambition. Meet us fully on that ambition. And look, maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a... I'm not going to say the tide's turning. It's way too early for that. But maybe, just maybe, something's happening there. And we'll have to see how it unpacks over the week. And call me the optimist. Call me whatever you want to. That's fine. And I'll eat my words again like I have done for the past couple of seasons. But let's just see.
Shane's the optimist, and I'm saying if they don't bring in the players we need, burn the joint to the ground. I'm joking, by the way. Not until at least November when I've been over there to watch a game. Now, my question, Shane, was: did the young kids get much of a run, or not in that game, or not?
I'm not sure. I mean, Donovan started at right back. We obviously had McArdle play the week before, but he was on the bench this time.
Yeah, I'm talking more about Hatton.
I'm not too sure. Like I said, I didn't watch it very closely. If I can be completely honest, so I'm not too sure.
For me, Hatton and Turley are ones, like I know what McArdle is and I rate him, but I've heard good things about Hatton and Turley, so I'm just wondering if they actually played. And so let us know in the comments when you watch this back later on, because the live stream didn't go out, so apologies everyone. But let us know in the comments what you thought of Hatton and Turley and McArdle and those young guys, because yeah, I'd just love to know what you all think about it. But yeah. One other thing in the comments. If you're watching and you're part of a Southern Hemisphere-based Celtic supporters club, please, I know it's very specific, but in the comments, can you please tag your CSC? Say which one you are. Do you go to the Melbourne number 1? Are you part of Sydney? Are you Brisbane? Are you Perth? Are you in New Zealand? Are you watching in South America, South Africa, and so on? I'd love to know who in the Southern Hemisphere is watching our podcast, because I was looking at the stats the other day. This is a funny thing for you, Shane. You'll love this. We have 17 new subscribers in South Africa in the last 30 days. Who are they? I don't know.
This is all that talk. This is when we were talking about Bloemfontein Celtic. This is
There you
that
go.
coming in. So, yeah, welcome.
I'd love to know who you are, and thanks for tuning in. And we're still keeping our spot as a top 100 podcast in Russia. There you go. For 34 straight weeks, we've been a top 100 podcast in Russia. So there you go.
Wow.
I think it's Liam and being the communist on the pod, and Dan. There you go.
I think just on your comment regarding the summer hemisphere, Jesus,
Yeah, that too.
southern hemisphere Celtic Sporting Clubs. Just a quick shout out to the Geelong CSC down at Murphy's in Geelong. I'm pretty sure they celebrated their first anniversary, or they had a birthday bash recently. So shout out to them. Geelong's a regional town here in Victoria, and having a look at the amount of people that gather for the games, it's a credit to them. And so to everyone who runs that joint, congratulations on the birthday, and here's to many more at the Geelong CSC.
Good bunch of people down there, and yes, I keep saying it, but I'll get down there for a game with you one day. We've been talking back on and off here for the best part of 6-7 months about it. So one day it's going to happen. Let's make it this season. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. We'll wrap the pod up here. Shane, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, just a music-related one, of course. So I've been still getting heavily into Thin Lizzy. I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying every album, to be honest with you. I haven't really come across a bad album so far from them. Their music's incredible. But what I will say is, Black Rose is probably the best Thin Lizzy album. I've been thoroughly enjoying that for many a month now, and I tend to circle back to it whenever I need to. So Black Rose, Thin Lizzy, incredible album. Definitely check it out if you haven't already.
Fine, we're going to go music then. Here's one for you. Been rocking out to a bit of Whispering Jack by John Farnham. There you go, throwing it out there. Aussie icon, Farnsey, you love it. Hail, hail everyone, and thanks for tuning in.
Hail, hail.